Hi, I'm Gayla Scrivener, ex-corporate girl and now work-from-anywhere adventure seeker. Creating a work-from-anywhere lifestyle isn't without its challenges, but those challenges certainly don't overshadow all the many benefits. What breaks my heart is seeing folks stuck and unhappy in a career and lifestyle when they want more out of life. I believe that we all have the opportunity to create the life of our dreams and earn a living in fun and creative ways to make our dream lifestyle a reality. You too can experience wonderful adventure and freedom as you live life on your own terms. In this weekly podcast, I share experiences when it comes to growing a lifestyle business through guest interviews, content marketing experience and perspectives, virtual leadership lessons, and I'll even throw in some travel adventures. My hope is through all the interviews, the tips, advice, and personal experience, you'll be inspired and motivated to keep going and creating your dream lifestyle. Life's an adventure. There's no time but the present to live life to the fullest. Hi, and welcome to the show. I am so glad you're here today. I love it when I have the opportunity to connect with some amazing individuals. I'm so glad that, about a year ago or so, when I changed up the format of this show to include guest interviews about every other week, because I am genuinely fascinated about how many ways there are to earn a living and to build a business. There are an endless supply of ideas of how individuals can serve their community. In my former life, that corporate life, I had absolutely no idea about how many opportunities were truly out there. By introducing you to others who are doing the entrepreneurial thing, I hope you know that you're not alone in your journey. Listening to others' experiences, their struggles, their successes, their expertise, and just plain fun stuff, well, I hope it brings inspiration and ideas to your own entrepreneurial journey. Well, this week, I'd like to introduce you to Nick Carita. After 12 years of working in professional sports, Nick decided to follow his budding passion for marketing. Now, with 11 plus years of experience, Nick owns his own creative agency called Red Letter Creative and also studies and teaches about sports and high-performance psychology. Now, I met Nick a few years ago through my local networking channels. Nick and I like to talk shop. Some may consider us competitors since we both own companies who do digital marketing. We don't see each other that way at all. We learn from each other. Our business models are different. Although some of the services that we do offer are similar, many go in completely different directions. In short, although we both do digital marketing, we do different things. I'm proud to have you meet Nick. I love his enthusiasm, his honesty, and his drive. So let's get started with my conversation with Nick. Welcome, Nick. I am so glad you're here with me today.
Awesome. I appreciate you having me.
Before we get started too much into the interview, I would love for you to tell my listeners a little bit about yourself.
Okay, awesome. Well, my name's Nick Carita, originally from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And in fact, this is one of the towns I lived by, Reading, Philadelphia. Collect jerseys as a hobby, worked in professional sports for probably around 12 years, I think. After my sports career was over, I kind of sat back and said, what do I want to do with my life? I was working for an NBA team at the time, and just marketing was a little bit on my radar because Twitter was fairly new and I had a friend introduce me to it. So when I went to California afterwards, sat back and said, wow, I really like this marketing thing. I want to do it for my church. They were really, really gracious in letting me do that. And before I knew it, I decided to start to do some freelance work. So I've been in marketing now overall for about 11 years, which is crazy to say. It still feels like it's new.
So I'm just curious. I know that professional sports, there's a lot to it than just the players.
Yep.
Were you a player or what was your role in professional sports?
So I started out working at PR and marketing for a minor league baseball team. They were a single A, high high single A affiliate for the Baltimore Orioles called the Frederick Keys in Frederick, Maryland. And it came about that after I graduated from college with a TV movie production degree, I discovered that working in sports was an actual thing. So I started reading books about it, saw an intern position that was open down there, and basically called them up and said, I want to do this for the rest of my life. So they brought me in for an interview, and apparently I said that during the interview too, and they're like, okay, we're going to hire him. So I did marketing and PR for a bit, but it eventually turned into retail. So doing the t-shirts, sweatshirts, and all the merchandising. So I moved out and worked for a team in Prescott Valley, Arizona. They were a minor league hockey team. Yeah, I figured you. Yeah, because I think you and I talked about that. Worked for a hockey team out there, and then the NBA Seattle Supersonics were looking for an assistant manager kind of thing. So moved up there, and then 6 weeks later was promoted to like just second in charge of their entire merchandising operation. But that was the year that there was the thought of them moving to Oklahoma City. So after the team ended up moving to Oklahoma City, I got a promotion. So I was the head of the merchandising operation for the Oklahoma City Thunder for their first 2 years in existence. But you're right. I mean, there's marketing, PR, communications, sales, community relations. I mean, these NBA front offices, sometimes have about 150 to 200 people working for them. It's a lot of people in there, a lot of moving parts, because you have the business side and you have the athletics side. And depending on the format of the team, sometimes they're all together and sometimes they're separate. With the Sonics, they were very much so all together. For the Thunder, they were kind of separated. But the inner workings of sports, it really is fascinating to go through and see.
So you're doing marketing well over 11 years.
Yeah, so the PR and marketing was mostly with that minor league baseball team. And then with the Thunder, I did a little bit because, again, Twitter was kind of new. And I realized what this was going to be. So I just went and said, hey, can I be an extension of what you guys are already doing for the team? And they said, yeah. So I guess, yeah, when you think about it, it might be more like, 13 years or so. When I moved out to California after the Thunder, when I really started studying is when I started trying to learn foundational principles of marketing. Like, I didn't want to be somebody who was coming into it and taking clients' money without knowing what I was doing, though I think a lot of people start there too, as they just try to traverse, like, what does it look like to actually put together a marketing strategy? A lot of what I was doing in sports was like peripheral in helping where I can, but I wasn't heading up campaigns or anything like that. When I was in California, eventually I met Leslie, who's my graphic designer / girlfriend. She's been doing graphic design now for about 3 years, graduated from OTC, is doing some awesome stuff. But when I was out in California, I said, why don't I try to freelance and see what I can do? And it was originally for churches and ministries. Then when I moved out here, God had different plans and said, well, we're going to put you on the business side instead. We have enough inside the church. So I definitely got a crash course into learning to market for businesses. And that's when I started sinking money into training. I'm not the type of person who wants to explore it myself and make the mistakes. I want to learn from the people that have been there and done that, and who have, larger brands and successful brands, because I want to learn from those people. They're doing something right. So that's when I started sinking, hundreds, thousands of dollars into training, because I wanted to really know what I was doing. So that's how I ended up where I am today now for 11, 12 years. And the training's been going on for about 7 years. So I feel like I have a pretty solid grip of marketing and components and tactics.
Well, good deal. And your company is called?
Red Letter Creative.
You're gravitated to marketing. What sparks you about marketing?
I think, and this is going to sound really hokey, but I loved thinking that I could help businesses to grow in the way that it helps the owners have dreams come true. We all, especially we're in like the pinnacle of entrepreneurship, where anybody can start a business for little to no cost. So to think that I was able to pair up with these businesses to help them achieve their dreams really excited me. I'm also a very strategic person. Like, I'm the person during hockey games, basketball games, how everybody wants to sit like on the court in front of the players and getting the sweat dripping all over you from the NBA player runs by. I'm the exact opposite. I actually like to sit up in the upper levels in the corner, because I love to see, like on a hockey game, a power play of this guy passing to this guy. And when this guy goes here, this guy goes over here. So it goes tic-tac-toe, goal. So the strategy part of like putting together this puzzle and a chain of events, photos, videos in order to achieve a goal, that like hits me right here. And then the other side of it too is that I've been studying a lot of sports psychology and high performance psychology. So to know that I can help on the marketing side, but then I can actually help on the mental side soon too, because that's part of my long-term plan is I'm going to go get a master's in sports psychology and high performance. So you have regular psychology, which is like, tell me about your day, tell me about your feelings, and let's talk about it. Sports psychology is baseball players, bottom of the ninth, 2 outs, winning run on third. What are you thinking in that moment? You struck out. Okay, well, let's go through your mental process and see what we need to fix. And as you know, on the entrepreneurship side, it's very much so the same thing, where we're dealing with imposter syndrome, or we're dealing with a whole lot more stress and anxiety. So putting that all together, the marketing side helped me to get there, to want to help on this side too, because it all ties together to the fact that I just want to help people overcome things that are holding them back, but also build the life and the business of their dreams.
What was the first thing that you did when you started out to get you started in being your own boss?
It's a good question. I think a lot of it came from the fact that I'm a very type A personality, and I had problems working for people, especially when there were jobs where I was asked to lie to our customers and do some just non-integrity things. And one of my big focal points in my life is being a man of integrity and a man of honesty. So when I kept seeing that these things were happening and I had to lie to people, in my mind, I'm like, I don't want to work for that anymore. And, this is probably, I guess 11 years ago. Entrepreneurship still wasn't cool yet, but it was definitely on its way. So it was the thought of, okay, well, maybe I can do this. But I'll tell you what, though, I was not prepared. I had no idea how difficult it really was. But when I started out, I said, okay, first step is I need to learn how to do it. Second step is I need to learn to do it for other people. So I went to my church and said, hey, I want to run your social media. This is something I think I want to do for the future. What can we do to make that happen? So about a year and a half later, as they got to know me, they said, okay, we feel comfortable with you doing it, so go ahead and do it. So I think for a lot of people, it really is just getting that experience first. And I did that by volunteering. And I did that for several other churches just so I could have social proof, but then I could also explore, well, what does an actual marketing strategy look like? How do I take a sermon, break it down into bite-sized pieces, create graphics for it in a way that still tells the story and it still has the same impact as if somebody was sitting there listening. So I probably did that for about 2 years before I moved out here to Springfield. So that's always my biggest piece of advice for people who were starting out is, always be honest with people. There are people that are willing to give you a shot if you don't have experience. There really are. So I just decided to jump in and be like, okay, it's either I don't do it or I'm going to have to dive in. And that's exactly what I did. And in fact, my first client out here, Leslie, was working for a church at the time. They owned a bed and breakfast. So I said, okay, I'm coming out there to start this thing. I will do your social media and communications if you let me stay in the bed and breakfast for a year. So my very first contract was a trade. And it wasn't until maybe about 3 years after I moved out here before I got my first paying client. So there was a good 4 to 5 years of doing stuff for free that it took for me to finally be like, okay, I think I can actually do this. And then, of course, there's a whole nother journey on top of that, too. When I was living in that bed and breakfast, the person who ran it, her husband worked in real estate. And this is where it came down where I thought my agency was going to be all about church communication. And her husband worked in real estate. And she says, hey, her husband's name's Lee Skiles. Said, hey, Lee, there's this guy upstairs who does social media for a living, but he doesn't have a job. So I met with Lee. And then about a month later, he says, I actually need an admin / contract to close for real estate / marketing. So I went to work for him in the Keller Williams Market Center here. Mm-hmm. But Keller Williams gave me the opportunity to go up to their room and train people how to do social media. So that was the next part of saying, okay, I know the basics. Now I have to put myself in an uncomfortable position to actually teach real estate agents how to use social media. So I probably taught, a class every other month or once every 3 months. I won their trainer of the month 3 times over the span of probably about 1.5 to 2 years. So even there, that's when the branding really started, where people started to see me as the expert. So then I got my first few contracts, and some of them were from that market center. Then I went out on my own for 6 months and got my butt handed to me because I wasn't ready mentally for entrepreneurship. So I went back and worked for that same agent again, started teaching again. But for a year and a half, all I did was work on my skill set and my mental game. Because I swear entrepreneurship really is almost 90% mental and 10% skill. Both can be trained. But if people don't have the right mindset in entrepreneurship, their skill's not going to matter because they're not going to be able to survive on the mental game.
I was going to ask you, what has been your biggest challenge in growing your business? And if it's mental, what is it about the mental game? What can you pick out? What do you have to prepare your mind for? What's your mindset?
Rejection, number one. Number two, rewiring my brain to, and again, this is where we get into the geeky psychological stuff, which I love. It's reframing what failure was and being willing to fail. Because no matter how good at marketing you are, 90% of these campaigns just don't work. Like, marketing is really, we have to try this and see if it works. If it doesn't work, we have to tweak. Is it the copy? Is it the photo? Is it the video? Is it the tech? So being okay with being able to look at something and say, okay, it failed, but what can I learn from it? Or here's a campaign, what needs to change? So you have to look at failure to find out what's going to work.
And I guess you have to have a relationship with failure, because I don't even view failure in how I'm wired. I think that life's an experiment, just ready to experience. So I never see a marketing campaign as a failure. It's an experience to learn from. And we're all wired a little bit different in our mindset.
And it's anxiety and overwhelm too, I think. Like, when you look at what entrepreneurship is, it means you are your own boss, but you're responsible for your money. So another one of the biggest keys that I had to learn from, I didn't realize, like, I had a fairly high level of anxiety in my life, but I didn't identify it as anxiety, right? So I had to learn, when I'm anxious, how do I deal with that? When I'm feeling overwhelmed, how do I experience that? And if you're okay with it, do you mind if I give a tip on that? Because this is something that's been massive for me, right? So this is what I study with the sports psychology and high performance psychology, right? So the anatomy of a thought, you can't help the initial thought that happens, right? So if I sit here and say, oh gosh, like, I don't know what I'm doing in marketing, right? If that thought comes into my head, I can't help the initial. What I can help is the meaning that I assign to it. So initial thought comes in, but what's the actual truth? What does it actually mean? So then the third part is saying, okay, well, if this is the thought, this was the trigger, I'm going to assign the meaning to it that's different to help me be able to deal with that thought. What sentence or phrase can I use after it that will help me define what the real truth is? So if I have a thought, I'm an imposter, I suck at marketing, what's the truth? Well, no, I've been studying it for 12 years and I have a good idea of what I'm doing. Maybe this was just something that didn't work. So what's my thought that's going to battle this? No, I do know marketing because, part number 4, I have proof to show that this statement is true now. So I'm an imposter. No, you've been in marketing for 11 years and this is a campaign that didn't work. I know what I'm doing in marketing because we were able to do this for London Calling, this for Bellacino's, this for this real estate agent, this for this pet store. So that's actually how you can battle those automatic negative thoughts, is putting that process in order. And then when you have this process, you write it down. And before you know it, when that thought comes up, you already know how to battle it. And then after however long, you're going to find that when this thought comes up, it's quickly dissolved because you've been through this so many times that this doesn't even exist anymore. And now you're going to believe the truth.
We've talked about the challenges of being an entrepreneur. What has been your biggest reward? Why are you still doing it? It seems like, oh my gosh, there's so many challenges. And there's so many of my listeners that are just starting out. And it's like, oh my goodness, if it's this bad, why should I do this?
Well, I think it's also, having your goal in the end and knowing what you're working towards. My goals, and it's really audacious, is one day I want to be part owner of a sports team. That's going to take millions and millions of dollars. To be a sole owner or a majority owner, it's going to take billions of dollars. But the reason I want to be a sports owner is because I see how much professional sports impacts culture. and how much those teams impact their local areas for good. Making, like, I cry when I watch videos of a little kid who sees his favorite player walk by and the player just takes 5 seconds to give him a high five and like talk to him and walk away, because that kid's going to remember that for the rest of his life. So when I think of the experiences that people can have with a team that maybe I own and then I can help shape a community is a big one. But there's also a whole nother side where, again, I'm a Christian. I'm looking at the Bible that's talking about helping orphans, widows, and people who are destitute, people who are really down on their luck. If I'm going to work just a regular job, I'm probably not going to make enough money to really make a major impact. The amount of money that I can make as an entrepreneur, when I frame it in the mindset of I want to help other people, it makes me sit there and go, no, I've got to work harder. I've got to do different things. I need to take a risk in getting an office because it'll help me scale quicker. So I think like the reward at the end of knowing what I can do here, and if we're able to grow it, can impact the world, is what drives me. Because you're right, there are days where I'm in bed and I do not want to get out. If I had a rough night or I have a client that's unhappy, you're right. Everybody's just like, I don't want to do this anymore. I can't deal with attitudes and I can't deal with my employees. That makes you quit. What keeps me going is no, there's a higher purpose to all of this that I can use to make an impact and leave a lasting impact on the world. So I'm just going to keep going. Because really, in the end, the person that succeeds is the person that doesn't quit.
When talking about like your clients and how you help them, what do you see your clients' biggest struggle?
Are you talking about like within their operations, or struggle
That's just
in what
open.
way?
How do you help resolve their struggles?
Well, I think one of the big things is I tend to challenge people and their mentalities. Again, going back to the psychology stuff, because that's just who I am. It's because I see a lot of potential in people that there are things in their life that are blocking them from being able to do it. Like there are times, and you know this from lead generation, right? I can bring somebody 60 leads on a listing, but unless they have the process set up to where there is going to be the nurture, the correct expectations of what an actual lead is versus what they want it to be, and then have the drive to do the sales process. I think because I've worked with a lot more smaller companies, a lot of people are still in that beginning stage entrepreneurship of learning what it really, really takes to be successful. And then also the other thing is that kind of balance, so if a lead comes in, you have up to 2 minutes to get to them where they're emotionally ready to talk about your product or service. If you don't catch them in those 2 minutes, it's a lot harder. So, telling somebody, listen, we bring a lead, like you've got to get to them right away. And they don't have that balance where maybe they didn't manage their time right. Now they're running late on a project. So now they missed 3 calls. That kind of thing where the mental side and the discipline isn't quite there yet in order to do it.
So you may help them cross that bridge of, okay, you've got leads. How do you develop a strategy to follow up on them so that you can turn them into closed business instead of just lost forever?
Yeah. And again, having the proper view on what a lead is. So let's say real estate, right? It's different now because of COVID. The housing market's just, houses are on the market for less than 48 hours and are getting anywhere from $5,000 to $30,000 above asking because there's no inventory, right? But before all of this, I would ask a realtor, let's say, and say, okay, we're going to bring you leads. What's the typical sales cycle? I knew the answer, but I wanted them to say it. And they're like, well, from somebody who contacts us from a realtor.com, usually 6 to 8 months, maybe a year. Okay, awesome. When we bring you a lead and they don't answer the phone within your first 2 phone calls, is that a good lead or a bad lead? And they're like, oh, that's a bad lead. Okay, so where's the disconnect? You just told me that 6 to 8 months to a year is how long it takes for a lead to convert, but you're expecting these leads to convert within 2 phone calls. So it's also about setting the expectation of this is what the service is, but there's so much more that you're not thinking about. So I love the education part of just being able to answer these questions and make them go, oh yeah, I didn't even think about that. And then before you know it, they have the expectation, leads are converting, they're happy, we're happy, everybody's happy,
Good deal. We're going to wrap up a little bit, but before we go, I would love for you to share your favorite resource or your favorite book that has really made a difference for you professionally.
I think one of my favorites that I've read it 3 times already, is Be Obsessed or Be Average by Grant Cardone, because I love the mindset of, and again, it depends on what you want to build. Myself, I don't want to build something that's ordinary. And what he always talks about in there, it's either you have a career or a very expensive hobby. That if you're not fully one, and this is why we jumped into this year, me not going back to sports freelancing, is because I needed to be 100% committed to my business. It's like all or nothing at this point. And that's what he talks about. He just talks about life. He talks about mindset. He talks about skills, but you have to be obsessed and be able to master your skill if you ever want to be outside of being average. So every time, I mean, there were times I was like pounding my desk. I was so excited when I'd read something that just hit me like a ton of bricks. So that's probably one of the most. And then the other one was Jab, 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 Right Hook by Gary Vaynerchuk, which for people who don't know that book, it's, talking about content strategy, about giving value without asking for, going in for the ask for the website, the phone number, whatever. The thought of, we just need to give free information, still pepper in your asks, but you give that free information so that people trust you. And then you can go in for, the ask in email or social posts or whatever, because everybody's so sales focused right now. And I get it. You're a small business, you need money, but it's the difference between short-term marketing and long-term brand. If you're always doing short-term marketing and always doing leads, you're never going to build a brand. You're going to continue to chase the short-term leads. So his book really was, no, you've got to have patience. You've got to get in the mindset of give all your information away for free, because there are plenty of people who are already saying it out there. Why not hear it from you? Something that Leslie taught me too. So that book really put it in this perspective of me of long-term branding, give the free information away to build the reputation so that people will want to buy from you. So tactically marketing, Jab, 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 Right Hook by Gary Vaynerchuk. Personally, entrepreneurially, mindset wise, is Be Obsessed or Be Average by Grant Cardone.
Great. Thanks so much, Nick. I'm glad that you're here. How can people connect with you and follow you?
Yep. So I have a couple different things that I do. I do have a personal brand page, which is my name, Nick Carita. And for the most part on all of the channels, it's at Nick Carita. Things get a little bit different with Red Letter Creative, because there is another company named Red Letter Creative, which took some of the Twitter handles. But if you just go to the website, which is redlettercreative.co, you'll be able to get to all of the socials from there. And right now, I'm big on TikTok as far as how it can, like the organic reach on it. So my focus right now, and probably by the time this is posted as well, I'm doing a lot on TikTok. So if there's like that free information that you want within 1 minute or less, TikTok's the place to go. And that's just Red Letter Creative as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being here. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, thanks. And, I just want to give a shout out to you as well, Gayla, just because, in knowing you over the last 2 years through mutual friends, just seeing your success and seeing your heart for people and how much you want to create that culture for all of the people that work for you and your clients, it really has been inspirational. The times where you and I have sat down and just, shot back and forth about what entrepreneurship is and mindset and also content strategy has been really, really valuable to me. And you're somebody to look up to in the industry. So I just want to thank you for being you and your heart, because it really does inspire me. And I'm sure a lot of the people listening right now are inspired as well.
Well, thank you, Nick. I'm so appreciative. Appreciate it. Wow. What kind words, Nick. Thank you. When we were recording, he caught me so off guard with these kind words that I was humbled and speechless. I didn't know how to gracefully end the interview. Well, Nick, I'm so glad to have you on my show. And even though I'm not with you as I'm recording this segment, when you listen through after it publishes, just know you made me blush. As I said at the beginning of the show, I'm genuinely amazed at how there seems to be an infinite amount of opportunity to earn a living. When Nick mentioned there were video game arenas and what the future will hold for the gaming industry, it blew my mind. Now, I'm not into gaming, so I have no idea what's going on in that space. But I think it is so cool that people continually find ways to earn a living in a space that sparks joy for them. A friend of mine the other day had told me that her grandson is a graphic designer for a video game company and loves it. Again, I can't help but think, how cool is that? I don't even have to like video games to know that there's so many cool opportunities in that space. Now, although I love talking shop with Nick, I love what else I can learn from him because we have such different interests. Listening to his experiences, his expertise, his dreams and aspirations really gets your mental juices flowing, doesn't it? Now, be sure to check out the show notes for all of Nick's contact info. And hey, if you're a marketing consultant in need of an implementation team, let's talk. My Scrivener Solutions team can help you generate recurring income to be your back office implementing the marketing plans that you have created for your clients. There are no worries about trying to manage dozens of contractors. No worries about hiring dozens of employees. No headache about creating all the eternal list of SOPs. I know how that is. Tap into our experience and our systems to get long-term results for your clients. You want to learn how? All you have to do is go to scrivenersolutions.com and click on that Schedule a Call link. It's right there up at the top of the website. Schedule a 30-minute, no obligation, get to know you and your goals call. Let's simply talk. There may be a way that by working together, you could scale your business. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, have a fantastic week.